Let the meltdown begin. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network. Let's do this thing. I am Gabriel Morency, and you know what? I'm fired up this week because the UFC is on a roll. A lot of people have been critical in the past year, including myself. There's nothing worse than inviting people over to watch a UFC event, and the event sucks. And people that don't follow the sport are asking you really like this stuff? You watch this stuff that much? What's going on here? But hey, we're coming off an explosive weekend in Ireland. The hype actually was real. Conor McGregor delivered. And I don't love the excitement and the over-the-top praise when a 5 and a 6-1 favorite wins, and when Ronda Rousey destroys somebody. Let's not be shocked when she was a 16-1 favorite with the opening number. But McGregor talks a lot, but he backed it up against Diego Brandao. A fighter that I'm really excited about is Gunnar Nelson. Man, Gunnar doesn't get a lot of the publicity because he doesn't really talk that much, but Gunnar Nelson is a serious badass. But when we're talking about badasses, you don't get much bigger, besides the New York badass and Phil Baroni, than Matt Brown and Robbie Lawler. I'm freaking jacked for this fight. So without further ado, let's bring in a man who's one of the best in the business at breaking it down, and he's the best in the business when it comes to breaking it down numbers-wise. The book Fightnomics is a must-read for all you fight fans out there. Reed Kuhn joins us. Reed, it's always a pleasure, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's always good to join you.
So, Reed, we've got the August 2nd card got canceled. So there's going to be a little bit of a layoff for the UFC after this event. Yet that's fine with me because, we're coming off some entertaining fights. Coming off a couple of weeks of entertaining fights, actually. And this is what's great about mixed martial arts and the UFC when you're throwing in two guys like Robbie Lawler and like Matt Brown.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in the last week, we had two events that we saw a lot of finishes, a lot of TKOs, a lot of submissions. The finish rate was way higher than average, and that's because they used a smaller cage. And I've been preaching this for years. If they shrink the cage a little bit, the fights get more action-packed. They have no room to roam. Now, when they do a Fox card, they always try to stack this because this is a huge audience, especially in the U.S. This is a mainstream channel. A lot more people, a lot more eyeballs, a lot more bars and restaurants can have this on TV that wouldn't normally be showing UFC. So they usually stack the deck with a lot of heavy hitters. And this event is no different. So coming off of all these crazy highlight reel finishes, we're riding high, and we're going into a bigger cage, but at least we've got a lot of star potential in here. So, yeah, there's some violent dudes that are fighting this weekend. So this should be another barn burner coming off two others.
I talked about Conor McGregor off the top of the program. He talks a lot. The UFC really hypes him a lot. They're obviously searching for some superstars, and an international superstar is really what the doctor ordered if you're Lorenzo Fertitta and Dana White right now, and you consider GSP is gone. And look, they sold 55,000 tickets once. Now, they're unable to do that. That was a one-time deal, but nevertheless, GSP was a sure shot. 18,000 tickets sold. They had a country in Canada, basically. And MMA is still huge in Canada, but GSP was at the forefront of that. In the United States, there really isn't that dominant superstar. Ronda Rousey sort of getting there. But Conor McGregor in Ireland and the European market is something they've been trying to tap into for a while, if they really haven't had that superstar. Bisping never really delivered. If Bisping would have won a couple of fights in a row, they would have set Bisping up with a title shot in England. They would have liked to pull it off at Wembley. Not happening. Now they're sort of floating out, hey, maybe we could do a soccer stadium show in Ireland at some point. But Conor's got to keep on winning. Are you buying what the UFC and Conor are selling? Do you buy the hype with this guy?
Yeah, I think I do. I was looking at some of his numbers before the fight, and as well, Gunnar Nelson. He's another kind of phenom guy that has big upward potential. So you've got these two guys. They're actually training together now, and regionally, you can pull some fans. Iceland's not exactly a big market, numerically speaking, but with Conor McGregor, what he's doing in Ireland, and the crowd, the reaction they had, the card they put on, you can guarantee that the next time they come to Dublin, it is going to be sold out in a heartbeat. So they can start thinking about larger venues. I think the problem over there is just logistics. The venues are either small or they're huge.
Yeah.
There's not much in between, but I'm sure they can get over that. That's a guy, he's way beyond where Michael Bisping was, I think, even at his peak, on his rise when he was looking like a future title contender. Right now, he's kind of in a limbo period. He's got injuries. He's coming off a loss. But yeah, Conor McGregor is the next big thing, and that's a division where they're looking for some name brand talent, and this guy cemented it. He was, I think, a 7-1 favorite by the time he got in the cage. The odds just kept going in his favor, and he delivered. He did exactly what he promised he was due. And so, yeah, I think throw some more attention on him. He's a personality, he's a character, and he's got some crazy skills that make for fun MMA.
Reed Kuhn with us, Fightnomics.com. You can follow him on Twitter, and as I alluded to off the top of the program, his book is a must-read for all you diehard MMA fans out there. Now, speaking of odds, Reed, I'm blown away by this. And, you know, Joey Odessa, the best combat sport odds maker out there, somebody I have a lot of respect for, he always says, you know, don't look at the odds. If you like a fighter, don't worry if it's 3-1. If you like him to win, then take him. And a lot of people in the betting world, and just, you know, average guys betting $20 a fight or whatever, will say, well, I don't really think he's going to win, but he's plus 300. And if you don't think he's going to win, then I don't understand why you're really betting on him. And you got to bet on people you actually think have a win more than a, you know, quote unquote puncher's chance. With all that being stated, Reed, I'm almost falling into this trap right here with Matt Brown. There's no way in hell I can't take Matt Brown at plus 300 against Robbie Lawler. I'm not an odds maker, but I'll tell you what, I think this is a bad number. I don't know if it's because, you know, the public is buying in on Lawler, and I'm not saying anything disparaging about Lawler. These are two great fighters. You can make the argument that Lawler has faced tougher competition. He's won 4 of his last 5 fights, as opposed to Matt Brown, a 7-fight win streak, but probably not the caliber of fighters that Robbie has fought. But with that being stated, to me, this fight's a pick'em. Like, how, you know, Matt Brown, how can we say anything against Matt Brown that he would be a plus 300 against anybody right now? The way he just stalks, pursues, and finishes, man.
Well, it's true. He's certainly outperformed his line in the last several fights. He's got several upsets in a row. And he's running through people and he's finishing them. And that's maybe the most impressive thing about it. But let's keep it in context. I mean, Robbie Lawler went 5 rounds with Johnny Hendricks. Lawler has been in the cage with some top-level talent. He beat Rory McDonald, very huge upset there. He, too, has come in and pulled off a bunch of upsets. He knocked out Josh Koscheck. That was a big upset. That was one where I was big on that one. So he has come through also with some upsets. So don't, you know, Matt Brown, it's impressive. He's pulled off these crazy knockouts as a big underdog, but so has Lawler. And I think Lawler, just the level of talent that he's been in the cage with, he's proven that he doesn't have a lot of holes. That welterweight, he's very resilient. He can go in against strikers. He can take a punch and he can dish out some damage. And he's got a great sprawl and brawl. He stays off his back. And Matt Brown, I think, he's been taking advantage of the holes in people's games. And the people that he faced were vulnerable in certain ways, and he found a way to get in there. He got into trouble early against Silva, but we all knew that Silva was probably going to gas out. And he was susceptible to strikes. His defense was a little bit sloppy, and sure enough, he took a brutal punishment. So, Matt Brown has done what he's done, and it's impressive, but there's got to be a ceiling here. I think he's hitting it with Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler is very crisp. He's got tight defense, and he's got very heavy hands. If this gets into a striker's duel, and it should, I think Matt Brown is going to be the one who falls down first. So, yes, anything can happen when you've got that much violence in the cage together, but I think Lawler is a justifiable favorite here.